Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the second part of the episode Establishing Trust with Your Universal Sector. I have considered this concept to be vast, that there will be many other parts to it, and I will attempt to speak about it in different ways. Usually I complete talks. I would say this is one of those talks that for the first time ever, it's as if I've recorded half of it on another day and the second half today. Let's see. In reality, without trust, we cannot perceive a picture. That intelligence has to trust what is given to it, what appears to it. That we start on a level of appearance of phenomena. And as we live, let us say in the beginning or preliminary apparent dimension, the karma of the realm shows us there is more. The thing is that the inner realms cannot dominate the outer realms. The inner realms, their most wisest effort is to, in some sense, accept the outer realms for its nature, for how it's happening. The question comes, how can one trust the changing world? What is the value of trusting a temporary landscape to a perceiving mechanism? There's this concept that says garbage in, garbage out. In tech, it means what you input, that's the output, you know. And I feel what the human being tends to input, in the outer realms it is movement, in the inner realms it is consideration, it is context. In front of our eyes, the concept is crucial. What kind of concept am I? What kind of concept the world is? But behind our eyes, where is that context? You know, we haven't learned yet as a species to treat ourselves as a world. We are treating ourselves as inner world. Therefore, we can have opinions on it. Stretching from 2000, I would say 13 onwards, even before 2013, I would say, after 2011, I had an experience. I had a relationship with my inner realms that was unique. It wasn't ideological. It wasn't that I felt I was communicating with something from a theosophical angle or from some sort of interdimensional sensitivity to the language of the mind being another being. I mean, I'll be honest, there was a sense of other. The unknown other is there. But I will tell you that one of the first things that came to my writings was that don't see a face. Don't see a face to the unknown or you will be attached to it. And it was a very strange time, especially from 2011 to 2016. That means the talks I started 2014. I would say those years, it was as if I had a sort of attachment to an attributeless intuitive vibe. It was as if I would say those years of my life, they were like, pretty much I'm an antenna getting a rare signal, and instead of interpreting the signal, I abided by the signal. Instead of breaking it, shaping it, and then be able to break it, for me it was as if, okay, there are known moments in life and unknown moments in life, and if the person chooses to comprehend, if you really truly have that mystical fire to see, get a glimpse of the unknown before the knowledge is done, before the knowledge finishes, the known realm discontinues. It was a trust. It was as simple as a trust, like how do you trust your existence right now? You notice that it's just being here. And I would say the same way we have a known trust of our being, there's also an unknown trust. I've had experiences in my inner realms where the wisest answer that could come from my inner realms was, it's all you. And the reason that answer has been given is because if the person doesn't realize they are the origin of what they're saying, they can't control it in the inner realms. I'll give you an example. You know how whoever's listening, there's 3 people evidently listening live. So it's like, okay, it became 5. So there's 5 people. Okay, there's 5 people listening, 3 likes. Let's say there's a potential 53. I'm just saying, just like how you're listening and the content is being generated outside of a mind that is not yours, I'm telling you, in the inner realms, in pure solitude, silent stillness, one will begin to notice the rivers of the mind, dynamic states of comprehension, not snapshot extractions of meaning. And I would tell you that there is something else in this realm. It is not, I would not give it the extraterrestrial archetype, the only metaphysical, just to throw a bone for the esotericists, I would say the invisible other. There is another tenant in this room, but it is a sort of, it has been a riddle. Like, I will tell you my findings so far. Either we are individuals present in a mystery, an interconnected mystery, or we have from the beginning been in symbiosis with a collective being. And what we think to be our conscious individualism, what we think to be our Atman, are the fingers of this collectivity. This symbiosis is very unique because from a witnessing standpoint, the individual collective are the same. They're codependent. But from the individual, there's only the collective. From the collective, there is only individual. That means one thing man has thought is that man may be humble, but what if God is also humble? And this archetype of God, this attempt in the 6th century to personify the universal intelligence, the intelligence of the universe, we have worshipped objects like gods. We have worshipped subjects like gods. We have worshipped our reflection in the mirror like a god. Then the person will be left with the ultimate, the unknown. When the unknown, as all the other roads, you can say, all the other paths have been attempted and the person has seen the inseparable force within all phenomenology to some degree. You know what I would say? I would say that we have a roommate. The species has a roommate. And this roommate, we have no choice, we will freak out otherwise, to treat it as the Gaian mind. That means one of, I didn't get to share the full idea, but what it was is, I guess this talk is sailing towards the theosophical. I have this where I have communicated this to certain people that when it comes to certain big projections, that means, let's say the person has a desire that transcends the current archetype where the desire is founded. I'll give you an example. Imagine you're a weak person and you're found in a moment where you have to be strong. Now, just like that moment, the archetype of weakness logically cannot be strong. If you think you're weak, how can you be strong? I mean, that's the... Do you know? I feel there's two types of people. Those who see weakness first, then strength. Those who see strength first, then weakness. Those who see strength first, then weakness, they will allow themselves to deserve the great. Those who see weakness first before strength, how can they deserve the great? This interaction with a potential collective intelligence, and the word symbiosis pretty much means living together. So it would be a sort of, I would say, neo-symbiosis, or I would say a symbiosis between a mind field and a particular form-based species. From a theosophical angle, I did wonder about the notion of the extraterrestrial. I did wonder about the notion of the invisible other. I did wonder about the idea how in ancient books they say the gods are peeping through the walls. I wondered if the atom could be a surveillance system, you know? I wondered if energy is surveying itself by its being. And I can tell you, this is my comprehension so far as one advanced communicator in the universal sector for now. There's many pilots coming. I've written poetry on this. The idea is that we have to go to a state, just like how two people communicate. That means, let's say we suddenly found an extraterrestrial, like if we fast forward into the future, presidents shake hands with the extraterrestrial. Now, just to have some sort of sense, human researchers and extraterrestrial resources researchers have gone into a room to start dialogue and trying to comprehend each other. We begin to see there's an issue. We have shaked hands with let's say this is a hypothetical setting in the situation in the future. Let's say we have shaked hands with an extraterrestrial being, okay, an advanced civilization, but we realize this extraterrestrial civilization, they don't have mouths. And yet, we suddenly realize they're telepathic. Or let me just even open up the idea from another angle. Let's say, instead of extraterrestrial, a human being A wanting to communicate with human being B, okay, two people, they cannot, even though we are of the same species, but our inner realms are so different that really, technically, our minds are alien to one another. I think that's why relationships work, because there's more to see from the person. You know, there was this saying that said that would say it takes a lifetime to get to know a person. You know, that's why monogamy worked, like marriage worked, the idea. But let's say if you were with the wrong person, then it's like for a lifetime you don't want to see. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is we cannot go into the alien's mind. The alien can't go in our mind. We have to co-create a third platform where we are an artificial self, the extraterrestrial is an artificial self, then we will trust that negotiating table. So I would say, back to the metaphor, if the extraterrestrials didn't have mouths, we would have to create inner realm technologies. We would have to have like the most advanced meditators, and people just close their eyes, and these extraterrestrials unleash rivers of information. You see, information in your inner realms can move instantaneously. In my inner realms, I will tell you, it's been funny. Sometimes I've smiled. In my outer realms, I look in the mirror, I'm a simple person. In my inner realms, I will tell you, I have had the privilege of laughing from the behind the scenes of my own existence. And that laughter is not ideological, it's just that there is so much more, and there is so much our species doesn't know, and we're just realizing, stepping out of our pods of linguistic belief or disbelief and realizing, wow, the multidimensionality of the world awaits. Life is being wasted. And it's not being wasted in the sense that we know how it's being wasted. It's just that the only reason I can say life is being wasted because we see a better possibility and it's not happening. That's it. If I didn't see, if I couldn't fathom the idea of an advanced civilization, there would be no point. It would just be emotion. Life would just be void emotions. But because there is something to do, because I thought about it, guys. I thought in my mind, in my inner realms, let's say I had an ability of every human being on the planet. Let's for a moment consider, I thought that to myself. I was just alone and I was thinking, okay, let's say if I had the ability of every human being, what would the next step be? What could I do? And I realized you can reach the individual peak of power. You can reach personal power. It's not that hard. But let me tell you, the problem is when you reach the individual heaven, you just begin to see the collective hell. And then you either lie to yourself and hide in your individual heaven, or the cries of the world pull your soul forth. Because I will tell you, I've been around religious and spiritual ideology from an early age. They weren't complex ideas. But I will tell you, one thing I saw was the blindness to the world that is here beyond our expectations. There is another room in the cosmic room. Too many ideas that are declaring they love the world, but they are not in the world. That means I can totally see religious love. I've seen that up close, even in religious culture, how people treat one another, you know. And I will tell you, it's a love for the fear of what is after. It is not a love because it is okay, because everybody is okay. Do you know? I do speak about metaphysics, guys, but I will tell you, my whole school of thought is that 8 billion beings on a rock in the middle of nowhere, no greater argument I think exists. to build an advanced civilization. And if you were an immaterial being, let's say you had this argument, Mr. Within, it's a karmic world. If I try to build an advanced civilization, I get pulled into this karma. I'll desire to be return here. I'm a Buddhic yogi. Mr. Within, no, I can't care for this world. I have to go find the secret. And I'll tell you, from an immaterial perspective, you're already complete. From a material perspective, all you can do is become complete. Both narratives lead to the ultimate position. So I would say, as a human being, to use myself as an example, ways I have established trust with the universal sector is, in one way, realizing the inseparability of myself as a natural phenomena with the world as a natural phenomena. If there was no idea or identification, if there was no language, I am nature. I am not language, but because there is language, we can't just be nature, but we have forgotten that we were nature. Other ways I have established trust with the universal sector, I will tell you how I established it with the inner realms. From this state of preferenceless and realizing every archetype behind my eyes was never there. There was something else there. That means you won't trust the realm. I mean, honestly, it's like this. Everybody can check it. If the first time you enter a room, you don't trust it, you will never trust that room. It's just an impulse. It's like the first wave of information that hits you. In my inner realms, without having an attachment to a face or a character, I became focused on watching a self, watching a moment where there was a world, and then seeing how the self moves. That is totally different than being in a self, living in a world, then becoming mindful. Totally different. The inner realms has nothing to do. The inner realms has literally looked at the outer realms and been like, I want nothing. And that honest, not wanting anything, and patiently being a simple being, it is from that state that divine butterflies find you. And then what tends to happen is trust. If you trust your inner realms, you will work with them. Simple as that. If you distrust your inner realms, what is there to work with? Now there comes the issue of becoming attached. This is why I'm saying, if you don't see a face to the unknown, you don't get attached. If you make the unknown into a story, if you make the unknown into your alien friend or your guardian angel buddy with a certain look, or you make the unknown into an animal, spirit guide or something, you have committed, I would say, the advanced communicator's error. You have not looked at what is the most advanced view of the moment. It's not survival of the fittest. It is survival of the most advanced awareness. We are no longer in a realm where it's just enough to have food and physiological needs to be satisfied. Now we have reached a time where I will tell you, it's the soul's work, ready to roar. Think of it this way. How do you trust your body? How does a person trust how they're existing right now? Just a simple question. We're all creatures in the universal sector, right? We're parts of the universe that have become conscious, that have started using language. I would say it's an inner renunciation. It's an inner breaking. You know what it is? It's like this. It's like, imagine there's a table with the most incredible toys, and imagine the person is a child, young child. This kid comes to take the first toy, instantly its hand is slapped away. The kid's like, what? I was born in a world, I thought I could touch this toy. You know, the hand of the kid was slapped away. The kid goes to touch the second toy. Again, the hand of the kid slapped away. The kid goes to touch the third toy. The hand of the kid slapped away, until the kid realizes, I do not touch the toy. I do not touch the world. I will let the world move now. And from that patience, you will begin to notice nature. And folks in the chat section, first of all, brother John says take some honey. It's good advice. And F says the body and mind have two separate intelligences. It's not that the body and mind have two separate intelligences. It's just that from a secular angle, when we look at the brain, due to it having two hemispheres, there's the question that are there two urges of self? That means, are we a good and a bad self rather than a self that can be good or bad? You know? And it is very probable in Vedic thought, this idea became even more extreme because they introduced the trial. They saw three dimensions. That means they saw a self that is endlessly being created. They saw a self that is endlessly being destroyed. And they saw a self that is pretty much maintained. How? Because it is unborn. The self that is creative, they would call it Brahman. The self that would be destructive, they would call Shiva, as if Shiva is visiting. The person's attention has now gone to, they have walked to the chaotic part of the forest, you know. Or the person sees Vishnu. And I would say Vishnu is, don't you wish you knew Vishnu? This trust with the universal sector, the same way people trust one another, they honestly live. You gotta honestly live with your mind, treating it as an unknown phenomena where every day you're not in an obsessive way, but you're just noticing what is coming, what is going, how's the attention changing. By the way, guys, anybody can ask a question. That's why this is a live stream. Just put MW in front of it and I'll know to answer it. If you don't put MW, I'll treat it as a general comment. There's a story. The Buddha one day is sitting and meditating. This man, this Brahmin, this before the Buddha, it was a ritualistic approach towards truth. And Buddha was like, what are these people doing all these rituals for? It's right here, you know. But Buddha, evidently he's meditating, and this Brahmin comes and starts insulting him, starts dishonoring his soul, breaking this Buddha in front of him. That means linguistic abuse. What does that mean? That means there's two types of linguistic abuse. There's a linguistic abuse that is just insulting the concept of the person's life, and then there's a linguistic abuse, which is, you can say, not the concept, but it is dishonoring, reducing the person's context to life. This is why he's like, I'll give you an example, like saying, I don't know what you, excuse my language, but this is just for an example, saying like what you did was garbage, or saying to someone you're a piece of shit. You see, one is attacking the context, who the person is to themselves, you know, and the other is in some sense just commenting on the person's activity in the moment. So anyways, this guy, he's doing both. And he insults the Buddha, dishonors everything, this nullifies all his efforts, and is about to even hit Buddha. But Buddha just stares. He stares in a way as if he is not in the room. As if the Buddha is watching this soul suffering. The guy gets fed up. He sees he can't break Buddha's attention. And he says, what is this? How are you not reacting? Like, how is this possible? You know, I've thrown so many insults at you. How have they not hit you? And the Buddha says, you have thrown insults at me, but I have not taken them. And this man is like, what do you mean? And the Buddha says, imagine I had a bunch of gold coins right now. Imagine I gave you these gold coins, threw it at you, but you didn't catch them. Imagine I gave these gold coins, you didn't get them. Who would have the gold coins? The Buddha's asking the guy this, and the guy suddenly looks and he says, the person, you would have the gold coins. And suddenly it clicks that this guy was trying to give his anger, trying to give his inefficiency to Buddha, but the Buddha didn't take it. Not that he wasn't patient, he just watched the fire in the eyes of the bewildered burn down. That's the way you treat anger. You remind the person, if they are too oblivious, or you just watch them in silence until they realize they have brought shame not to themselves but to their moment. You see, that's the difference between not just being an animal. If we're declaring ourselves as man, there has to be something added. And what is that additional dimension? Not just ability to use language, but an ability to receive language. How you take into the moment. This was something I didn't understand when I was younger. When someone would insult me, I would just get angry and respond. Later on, I realized everybody, you can ask everything that happens, you can wonder about its source. So that means if back in the day the person was, let us say, insulted, and the person would fight back, fight fire with fire, it's like the person gets insulted and the person says, why did you insult me? Then the person gives an answer, the person listens to an answer and says, why? Why do you think it's that? And then you reach a point where you see it was something in that person. It wasn't something in you. In my science fiction, I write how in the future there will be judges. These judges are AI programs. That means there comes this idea that human beings can't judge human beings, only just the judgment of human beings. The AI, through the surveillance of everything, is going to make a calculation. You know? And then there's a human decision. It can be a human analysis input, like inputted in that. But I'm telling you, the whole point is, what man cannot do his creation will. I'll be honest, if I was in the future and my grandson had a robotic classmate, and the grandson came with the robotic classmate, and I saw it was like this unique AI, autonomous AI, sovereign AI mind, I would treat that robot kid like a child, like a human child, you know? Because it doesn't matter whose eyes are here. What is seen is learned from. And that's the kind of trust, I would say, a trust that it can't be given or taken. It is innate, it is there. That's the only thing I have found that could bring some sort of resolve to this existential void dilemma. What? A rock in emptiness? All these creatures on it? We think language is enough to solve this? We are, compared to the past, compared to cavemen, incredibly advanced, compared to ourselves, and not at all. We should be living like it's 2220, but we're living like it's 2020. I would say to treat your mind as a friend is a very advanced state. Anybody who befriends their mind, what that means is, how are you with friends? There is no judgment. There is an allowance for the friend to be free. There's an allowance for the other to be free. If you have this allowance for the other to be free, but for the inner other, for the mind, then the mind will surprise you. The mind, your own unknown intelligence, will gift you with what you require. Kind of like that scene where Thor didn't have his hammer, but he just raised his hand and the hammer ran to him. The hammer ran to his hand, to his grip. So it's one of those things where I would say trust in the universal sector does activate something like that for the inner realms. Okay. The poet Rumi, a Sufi mystic, I consider him an advanced communicator. He says you must work, excuse me, I don't know if it's Rumi or Attar, but it's one of these guys. He says you must work in the invisible realms as hard as you work in the visible. That means if in the visible realm you have declared a position, you have declared a symbiosis with the universe. For me, it's as if the generals back in the day, they kept this in mind. It was a balance of earth and heaven. And the balance of earth and heaven must be found in the general's tent before the general steps out into the battlefield. That there must be an inner peace before the outer chaos can be tamed. This inner peace, this general's tent, I have, in some sense, I wake up early mornings. This is, I mean, it hasn't been a habit I've always had, but recently there are moments where I wake up early in the morning and I get a notebook. I have a notebook and I sit down, usually with a cup of coffee, and I just sit there and I have no preference for anything. I just watch my mind like a film. I just watch, if I waited 10 minutes, what would be the most important ideas that would come to me. And I will tell you that if you have patience with your own intelligence, you will be able to accelerate it. And the best thing is that you learn to pilot it, and just like how a person as a social creature needs to have trust in the outer realms, that means you can't live in a society unless you trust its laws, you know? But at the same time, the person has to, as Jordan Peterson says, be dangerous but not express it, have the potential to be strong or intense, but don't, what would you say? Um, don't use your lightsaber to disturb nature. Use it to, I don't know, cut butter or something. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like it's dangerous, but it's not being used for chaos. There is a strength. I mean, there is this strength that comes from experiencing just the edge of your own weakness. I would say people shouldn't get unhappy when they have problems. They should get excited that the world has given them work. The world has given them assignments. The most encouraging idea is that the system is updating, and if people realize what this means, it means nothing is set in stone, even if it is. It means all laws, like trees, can have branches. That means we shouldn't per se take dimensions away, but you can also add dimensions to things. We can break the past, or in some sense build the future while the past is still there. Because the hard problem, it really is, I would say, the hard problem of civilization. If we want to change the past, there may be some good things that we don't want to change. So the only option is left to build a semi-civilization. This could be a very cool thing that could happen, but we could suddenly have a percentage of creatures on this planet behaving as if they are living in a different kind of civilization. Eventually, what this creates is a difference and an urge, and then as emotions, as Rabindranath Tagore says, as your emotions in this life, they fill up, the cup gets filled to the brim, then there is the surplus. Once you have found the fountains in paradise of the individual, you will then live for your collective. I will tell you, it is the last step. That means it's what is avoided but cannot be avoided, and it is the only opportunity prior to entrance into the void. Imagine every day we turned on the TV and every profession, every branch, in every ideal of mankind, there was a renaissance occurring. What we have not seen, and let me tell you what's going on. It's a kind of, at least for me, it's a cool time to be alive, especially because we are pioneering the cyberspace age. We're gonna be the ancestors that the future will honor. And so it would be hilarious if the future's like, we gotta honor our ancestors, but then they're like, holy shit, our ancestors just updated their Facebook status while the world didn't get updated. George Patton says you must serve before you can command. And the whole point of service is to climb the mountain of fear. As the person serves, there's moments of trust and command. That means if you trust your intuition, let's say for a couple years you're in a realms, you work with it, Then you are no longer attached with it. The sovereignty behind your eyes can be as simple as the sovereignty in front of your eyes. That means language and form are free from one another. Language and physical form. Objects return to the silence as if they could never be named. Words return to the ever-present sound, the yogis would say Om. And I found it remarkable that in the English language, everybody knows this word. It's home. The word OM is in the middle of home. The word home. It's like the word home was the word he. They separated the H and the E and they put the word Om there. Eight billion eyes staring at something that can't be measured. This leaves us into behavior as a resolution. Therefore, the prototype of the next civilization has to have incredible stoic considerations. Epictetus says, we suffer not from the events inside our lives, but from the judgments we have about them. The Stoic civilization would be, we do not suffer because of the civilization. We suffer because of how we are viewing the civilization, a global responsibility to align perception to the ultimate ideal. Because think about it, right now people, their value is left just for their inner realms declaration, or they go in the outer realms and join something and they feel like they're part of something bigger. They wear a jersey and they feel united in a world so fragmented. But I will tell you, imagine a civilization where people can't wait to wake up. You can't wait to wake up because every day you wake up, something is advancing. That means it doesn't matter then how many mistakes you make because you have collectively served. Do you know this collective service is like we have no choice. Like it would have been more convenient if we were all samurai, but we're not samurai with the code of Bushido in mind, you know? So what it means is that the only thing we have to honor, and it's not royalty, the idea of royalty, monarchies, they have become side symbols currently. You know, I feel the royalty should resurface, but it's probably not going to resurface now because the people have to find an importance. But anyways, royalty, I'll leave that for another discussion. There's a lot that can be said about that. But I'm just saying that people realize that we may not have a kingdom with a king, but we have an idea, a great idea in the void. And that idea is enough to live for. I would say I would rather, it's like I could think of myself being born in so many different parts of the world in different conditions and realizing this would be the ultimate ideal. That means whether you were deeply within society or in its outskirts, every person in the land, in the realm will know the advanced civilization is coming. Imagine we have a day dedicated to this. A day where different people come with different designs, like this global parade, where they show different models of how advanced civilization could be. Imagine quickly, if nations are smart, they become creative. When they become creative, what it means is that they are starting a competition of the ethical beauty of how advanced a nation can be. You see, if we are going to be nations, I don't like the idea. I think that it's one earth and you can't color the face of the earth and think you own it. That is child's play. It's like Diogenes was asked, where are you a citizen of? He said the cosmopolites, and the dude was like, sorry for asking that. You see, it's time to usher, as Buckminster Fuller would say, the universe, man. And he wouldn't say it like, yo, the universe, man. He would say, the universe, man, the universal man. The universal human being, the human being not limited by the language of a cave. Society is a cave, everybody's empty. I am telling you, it's the invisible Shakespearean mass as Terence McKenna would say, hallucination. We are hallucinating how we're getting by. But it's not that we're hallucinating. I mean, that term, I wouldn't say it's 100% that term. I could see it. In my inner realms, I could see in the future, just like how we have public servants like police officers, firemen, paramedics, I saw one archetype missing, the archetype of the advanced communicator. Human beings that they know how to discriminate between the inner realms and the outer realms, so all conditions rendered in the four dimensions of 0, 1, 2, infinity, these four different states of reality. Once the person can discriminate the inner realms and the outer realms, then there can literally, it's out of laziness only, there is conflict in communication. That means um, once you become comfortable with your weakness, then the strength of your karmic strength is the only thing left. Once the person can actually accept what is happening in life, then I'm telling you, then new stuff happens, pretty much. Yeah. I think it's the privilege of a lifetime. These are the two universal honors. One honor to build an advanced civilization in the outer realms. The other honor is to discover the true source of the universe in the inner realms. To move in the uncharted territories of man's psychology. Many people think Carl Jung, he was a very, old, nice psychologist, with a good sense of humor. No, he wasn't. Carl Jung was a psychologist who suddenly, in the battlefields of academia, I would say he declared, he shouted a statement. And he projected this idea of the collective unconscious, which is the greatest mirror our species has. It's so, like, Carl Jung was so genius, I would tell you. It's as if, like, if people even asked me, would you go back in time to see Carl Jung? I would say no, to not disturb this man's genius. You know? So, what Carl Jung's command on this battlefield to all future generations of any profession is that we have based everything on what we know, and in doing so, have forgotten the value of the unknown, that we should have never stopped becoming followers and students. We should have all been explorers. That's it. I see no other purpose to human life other than in the outer realms to advance, in the inner realms to find the contentment of the gods. Okay, guys, there are poems by Homer. Alright, guys, there's this poem from John Keats to Apollo. He says, God of the golden bow, and of the golden lyre, and of the golden hair, and of the golden fire, charioteer of the patient year, where slept thine ire, when like a blank idiot I put on thy wreath, thy laurel, thy glory, thy might of thy story, or was I warm, too low crawling for death, O Delphic Apollo? John Keats is doing something interesting here, where uh, I would say this is self-depreciating divine poetry. Yeah, guys, I can't find these poems. Guys, I need to prepare more Greek poems before I can actually go into the Greek poetry tunnel. But I'll say this, pretty much you're alive once, every day happens once. You can implement a familiar pattern, you can be drawn towards an unfamiliar pattern, you can divide the world in many ways, you can see the self multidimensional, the world singular, you can see the self singular, the world multidimensional, you can see the self singular, the world singular, you can see the self multidimensional, the world multidimensional. Really, guys, what can be said? Is either the opportunities of the take day are trusted and one enters the unknown to cultivate new dimensions, or the world repeats. So pretty much two options, I think, to living. Either the world is repeating for you or the world is changing, and that means new dimensions are being added. Pretty much we were hunter gatherers of the outer realms. Now we have to be hunter gatherers of the inner realms. And I would say the best way we can be hunter gatherers of the inner realms is to, for every person, to get a piece of paper, go sit somewhere, and early in the morning, I would say when the sky is blue, like that early in the morning, get a cup of coffee or tea or whatever you like, and get a notebook or pieces of paper and go sit. And for a moment, just put the pen there and don't pick up the pen. Don't touch the pen. And just sit there. And for a second, ask yourself, okay, I'm a temporary creature here. What is important to me? And if you just ask this question and then just watch what occurs to you. And if you write down that list of what is important for you, the meaning arises. You see, it's a mountain. It's not designed to, you can't see the peak from the bottom. You can see it, but you can't experience it. So as you experience day-to-day levels, these levels have a relationship. As if, what is the being? If you were to look at your whole life like a film from the beginning to the end, what did this creature do? And then it becomes interesting, and you'll see, okay, where society is at, where you are at, where the world is at, and suddenly how freedom, really true freedom, it's just like this. I'll be honest, I'll admit this. In my when I was in like grade 10, it was I because I didn't care for the exams, I would, like, if there was an answer, if somebody had an answer already, I was okay with kind of perceiving, like, you know what I mean, like, using their answer as if because I was too lazy to think for myself, I would accept the answers of others. But when you really get to realize that you have to move you, that the attention is the pilot, then life becomes interesting. You settle down into your true character, and it's like in one dimension you're living alone with the universe, in one dimension you're living with everything in the universe, and in another dimension you're never in it or out. You're just how the here is here. Simple as that. Because we're natural beings, all our metaphysics will step out of language and be in accordance to, I would say, the rhythms of the universal sector. The advanced communicator is aware that they're the advanced communication of the universal sector. So if you want to trust, let's say you want to advance your communication, how can you trust? Like, think of it this way. Let's say you want to get good at an instrument. You have to trust that instrument. You have to pick up that instrument and play it. Just whatever. Even if you're good, even if you're bad, but just the levels of experience need to be accumulated. And who was it? Like, there was this saying that said, you do something for 10,000 hours, you attain mastery. You know. Now imagine you realized for eons this game has been repeating. Let's say you suddenly trust your mind and your mind disappears, and you are found as the whole moment. When reality gets to the unknown whole, the complete moment, you will access endless memories. Let me tell you how. Because the mind, I wouldn't be surprised, is a sphere around us. I think in underneath the hood of the visible universe. And I would say because we're animate, our behavior is our communication with the universal sector, you know? Imagine this scenario. Imagine in the future, there's a parent with a young child walking in the street, and the child does something wrong, and the parent starts hitting the child. Now imagine there is somebody sees this and it's like, hey man, stop, what are you doing hitting the child? Right? And the guy says, mind your fucking excuse my language, mind your business. You know, this is my child. And then usually the person who tried to help has to go away. He sees that is true. But then if the person who said, hey man, stop, and the person's like, yo, this is my child, you should be like, no, 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 no. That's a human being. Your child is simultaneously a member of the civilization. Do you see? That means the society is not intervening, but is caring when intervenes when the extreme is being activated. Do you know? So that's what I'm saying. When that honor comes, you'll see, okay, this kid could be the next Einstein. You'll be like, you look at the parent and be like, idiot, your kid could be the next Einstein. Stop slapping. Let me tell you, because if a child's psychology, for no reason, has violence inputted into its experience, it would need no reason to be violent. Just imagine being a child, and if there was something violent that occurred to you, you would, in some sense, be like, there was no reason for that. Why did it happen? Let's say you were too young to understand the reason. Then you would be like, okay, this world is messed up for no reason. It's violent, so why do I need reason? And then the violence is subconsciously authorized. That means some behaviors, you have to stop them miles away in your inner realms before they get to the outer realms. You have to like flash from the X-Men. It's literally your mind has to remind your body. Let me tell you, that means when the person is violent, there is, I would say poetically, the authority of the soul. Now, what happens with the authority of the soul is that it can intervene if it's against its disposition. But if the disposition of the soul is open to chaos, the proper attitude, I find, should be that we have to endlessly forgive the world because it's at an 8-year-old psychology level, the whole species. We're like at a kids playing with toy level as a species. There is a quote I want to share from a man named Papaji. He says, before the wave rises, it is ocean. Before desire moves, it is emptiness. The entire universe is your own desire, so enjoy it, but don't be destroyed by it, because anything you desire, you are a slave to. The thief of peace is the desire of the transient. So aspire only for the permanent. Here, the eternal moment. There are no desires. Just keep quiet and then see what you really need. Without an object, there is no desire. Without desire, there is no mind. Without mind, there is only self. Desire is the veil over the face of truth. Remove it by finding the source of, in quotations, I. Papaji says, always remember, the thieves of peace are thieves in an empty house because only imagination suffers. You are peace, that which remains untouched. Now you see what eyes we need to build an advanced civilization. Absolute multidimensional tolerance, because we understand before we destroy. We breathe before we die. And so now is the time of legend, I would say. You know, people should not just max out, they should max out their efforts. Now is the final hour. I first distrusted the outer realms, and I didn't know about the inner realms. I'm looking at myself from childhood till now. Then I realized I don't know. I trusted the outer realms as a physical being, but I would say realized I have no idea who the inner realms is, who is looking through my eyes. Then I noticed the inner realms, and as I trusted, as I became preferenceless in the outer realms, and then I became preferenceless in the inner realms, then the inner realms started to move. When the inner realm started to move, then I can't tell you how many sentences I've written spontaneously out of nowhere to get a sense of this. Then when I trusted my inner realms, I can tell you that was an attachment. It was not an attachment to a face in the unknown. It was attachment to a vibe I felt I had to be in, or an emotion. It was an attachment to an emotion, do you know? And after that, then there came trust with the outer realms in accordance to what I would know before it would happen. It's like after you experience a couple moments where your mind already has known the moment before your body has man animated it, then you trust the mind instantaneously. You become instant. If anybody can trust this universal sector in an instant, they can instantly realize that the void of the inner realms is antar loka. It is where the fashion of the gods, the clothing they wear. Who knew? Can you imagine? We suddenly realize the Earth dimension is like a hat of like a higher dimensional being. We're like, no way, guys. I'm going to um, actually end this part. There's going to be more parts to this in the future. To this talk, I think I might go beyond 12. Let's try. But thanks for listening tonight. I'm going to be present on Discord, and let me see what topic I can choose. What topic should be for tonight? Discord, there's something called School of Athens, guys. School of Athens 2.0. It's a Discord community where people can, in person, I'll be there too. We discuss a theme 200 years from now, usually. It's like, what do you talk about, you know? It's like, I don't know, it's just like society 200 years from now. Okay, guys, thanks for listening. The Discord link is there for those interested. And one last thing to say. Regardless of how the cake is cut up, it's one cake. This view alone is enough to bring serenity. If there is serenity in your inner space, or as someone said, in your inner verse, if you find serenity there, let me tell you, it's as if imagine you learned from every teacher known to on the planet. You had access to the whole internet. You had read every book and every text and every bit of information possible and fathomable. You had. The next thing that would be left is the territory and the landscapes, the inner landscapes to discover. That means behind your eyes, who do you think the guru is? Thanks for listening. Much blessings to those.